And good evening. This is Mottek On Money, number one for your business and consumer news here on Talk Radio 790 KABC. I'm Frank Mottek, and we're doing it live right here weeknights at our new time of the 5 o'clock hour in Los Angeles. Mottek On Money 5 nights a week for you, live on the air here on 790 KABC, streaming live online worldwide at KABC.com, and the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast for you at KABC.com, Apple, iTunes, all your favorite podcast platforms, and on the socials too at Frank Mottek on Twitter and Instagram. Well, stocks finishing higher today. In fact, the Dow has moved higher to the highest we've seen in more than a year now. Rally continues here. Looks like what drove the market somewhat, some disappointing news from China, fostering a cautious tone across global markets. But the Dow was able to overcome that today. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ closed at 15-month highs, while the Dow notched a sixth straight session of advances. Stock investors shaking off that disappointing report on China's economy that had put some pressure early on. Last week, the Dow was up 2.3%, the S&P 500 up 2.4%, and the NASDAQ jumped 3.3%. Taking a look at the action today, we did see some comments from former Fed Chair, now Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, sounding an optimistic note on the prospect of avoiding a recession now, citing the strength of the labor market and encouraging inflation reports recently. She's flat out said, "I don't expect a recession." She spoke today in the New York Fed Empire State Business Conditions Index, an important index back east to gauge manufacturing activity, did fall 5.5 points, and economists had expected a flat reading, according to a survey by the Wall Street Journal. We have been getting some disappointing readings on manufacturing recently, including one that showed manufacturing activity the lowest in a couple of years, and of course that was during when the economy was shut down. That's an important reading since Los Angeles has the largest manufacturing region in the United States. Tesla shares moving higher today, up more than 3% after the company's first Cybertruck rolled off the assembly line in Austin, Texas, following years of delays. Activision Blizzard shares of 3.5% after a federal appeals court denied an FTC bid to temporarily block Microsoft's acquisition of the video games company. Microsoft stock finished slightly higher. Elsewhere in the EV space, Rivian shares finishing down by more than 3% after the Tesla news. We saw Rivian shares down to 3.3%. Ford ended lower by nearly 6% after Ford said it was cutting prices on its F-150 Lightning electric trucks by as much as 17% for some models. The head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Gary Gensler, is warning that artificial intelligence poses a risk to financial stability. He says regulators are on the lookout for fraud, conflicts of interest, and he cautions companies touting AI in corporate documents. I'll discuss that latest AI news tonight with Jim Hoskins, an AI pioneer and the CEO of Cogability, whose companies work on artificial employees, among other things. Looking forward to speaking to Jim Hoskins for a big update tonight on the AI world. Local businesses here in the Los Angeles area continue to wrestle with crime and the homeless. I'll discuss what's happening in the Venice area of Los Angeles tonight with SOLEDAD URSUA, Venice Neighborhood Council board member, and looking forward to finding out what's happening there as Venice has been written up in the New York Post over the weekend. But first, on the markets, the economy, AI, crypto, the whole works. Let's bring in Ken Winans now, money manager and president of Winans Investments, Forbes magazine contributor, author of Investment Atlas 1 and 2, creator, by the way, of the Winans Preferred Stock Index and the Winans Real Estate Index. Ken Winans, thank you very much for taking the call here, Ken. And the market seems to be on a roll here, and in reaction to the latest readings we've been getting on the economy lately, on inflation and jobs. Give us your view of things here at the moment.
Well, and the one thing you're not adding to there, Frank, are earnings.
Yep.
We are neck deep in the middle of earnings season, and it is just really starting and really going into next week, to me, is going to be the telltale sign of where we are as the bulk of the S&P 500 begin to post their numbers. So remember the old adage that in this kind of world, it's a tug of war between interest rates and earnings. And I think you're going to have a very mixed bag, if I had to make a guess. Some companies are going to say, hey, we're doing fine, we're making money, and others are going to say, no, we're not. Now, what does that mean to stocks? You have to remember that in the case of stocks that have really ramped up this year and they've made back a lot of their loss from last year, that is going to mean that if those earnings are not priced, these advances, then you can expect those stocks to pull back. So I think it's going to be more complicated as we get through the dog days of summer and to see where things play out. But, Frank, I also wanted to point out something, and I'm sure everybody in the audience has probably noticed this. Look, I know that there's a lot of reports coming out of Washington that inflation is taming down, and I know many people are assuming that it's all over. I don't know if you've gone out to a restaurant lately and if you ordered a bottle of wine prices, especially in Northern California. I was in Napa over the weekend, and my jaw dropped at how much wine prices had skyrocketed in the last 9 months. So again, I don't think we're done with the price increases yet. I think that it's just we are going to be dealing with this for quite a while.
Did you have the Chateau Lafite, 1875 or something?
Oh, no, Frank. Hey, listen, I'm a humble money manager. I can't afford that kind of stuff. Not like you radio superstars that can do this stuff. But no, it's just that, I mean.
No, you're right, of course.
No, but listen, there's this mismatch between what the government's telling us on inflation and what I think most of us who go out and live a normal life and what we see every day. This is going to be years and years and years of this stuff, and it's going to go back and forth across the board, and we just have to get used to it.
On the air live with money manager Ken Winans, and of course the hot labor summer continues, Ken, as the 790 KBC news department's been following what's happening on the picket lines today with the SAG-AFTRA joining the writers going on strike here now. Certainly Hollywood and media stocks certainly are in focus nowadays, coming under tremendous pressure as we see all these changes related to AI and everything else that's going on. Give us your view of what's happening on that front.
You know, I think it's all ties back to inflation. It's the cost of living. And now the next round of this, it usually starts out with what we call demand inflation, which is goods and services costing a certain amount. But what comes up on the back end of this is what we call wage inflation, which is, hey, I can't afford these things. I need to have a pay increase. So they come in various guises, but I think at the end of the day, it's always about what people are trying to take home. And then, of course, as you talked about, there's a lot of mitigating factors going on that I'm not an expert in. But I think at the end of the day, it's about what people make. But, Frank, the white elephant in the room, and I mean, you know, I know this show, you love to talk about this. I know you have Norquist come on quite a bit and talk about taxes. The simple fact of the matter is the taxes in the state of California are high. They're high for everybody, owners and employees alike. And the state is already slating to raise taxes even higher or make adjustments to deductions. So again, inflation does not count tax increases, but in my world, it does. I mean, it's money out of your pocket. So unfortunately, the state is not doing much to try to mitigate the pain that people feel that work and live in the state.
You're absolutely right, and certainly, even though no official declaration has been declared on a recession, it certainly feels like that for a lot of people and businesses. And by the way, gas prices continue to rise here in the Los Angeles area. We're looking at basically $5 a gallon now on average for regular gas here in the LA area. Premium now at $5.33 and diesel at $5.19. About 40 cents a gallon higher than they're paying in Hawaii, by the way. Isn't that interesting? So California is definitely the leader here as far as the gas prices are concerned. And we see this transition to electric vehicles continuing, Ken, and Tesla and the EV names continue to get attention. We see Ford lowering the price significantly on its electric pickup truck. That's interesting. And GM reported earlier this year that they only had sold 2 electric Hummers. So some interesting sales numbers have come out. Give us your reaction here on Tesla and these EV names.
You know what? I think I know one of the 2 people who bought that Hummer. I saw it in a parking lot. I said, that car looks a little different than the thing I rode around in it back in my Army days. But anyway, look, here's the thing. EV, and there's a demand for EV, but the one problem, and it goes back to just basic common sense. You have a vehicle that's not cheap to make, and the cost of the raw materials to make it is going up. And I know that the government's trying to subsidize these vehicles more and more, and they're trying to make it where, that if you get it, you get certain tax incentives. But with all that being said, what you just described about the Ford pickup truck tells me all I need to know. People are still using gas-powered pickup trucks because they, one, get better range, and in at least the way that pickup truck people see it, they're more reliable. So there's a lot of hurdles yet that EV has to overcome before I think it becomes as more mainstream than it already is. Because, Frank, let me just say this. I know around L.A., around the San Francisco Bay Area, there's EVs everywhere. Let me tell you something. Go to other parts of the country. You don't see them nearly as much. Go to Phoenix, go to Las Vegas, go to Salt Lake City, and you just don't see them as much. So, again, what we see locally doesn't necessarily correspond to what's going on nationally. We have to always remember that.
Certainly. Getting back to AI for a moment, NVIDIA stock could have a pathway to $600, according to analysts at Citi. Of course, NVIDIA and its AI connection propel that stock to new heights this year with a eye-popping, about 150, 160% gain. What about NVIDIA here, Ken, and anything else that's catching your attention in AI?
All right, well, here's the thing, and I know it's our job to point out the home runs for the year. NVIDIA is still not back yet to where it was in January 2022, so we're still playing a lot of lost makeup ground here, which is great. Hey, the stock has performed magnificently, but we have to remember, if you're an investor, this stock is not for the faint of heart. This thing is extremely volatile, as most of the AI stocks are. So before you rush in and decide to jump on it right now, just kind of keep that in mind. Look, I think at the end of the day, tech is the magic about technology and its industries. They always find a way of reinventing themselves and turning the focus into new areas. And I think that, obviously AI is fitting that bill because, again, let's go back to the inflation argument. The reason AI is taking on such a realm right now is that employment costs are high. Employers are saying, aha, if I can implement AI, I can save my labor costs, which sadly means I don't have to hire as many people. So I don't necessarily know if we want to champion that as much as we think we are. At the same time, I do think, look, I've been around Silicon Valley a good part of my career. They are very, very.
For a limited time, Sweet Deals is offering qualified listeners the vacation of a lifetime. An all-inclusive 5-day, 4-night stay in a suite for just 2 adults and up to 2 children in Cancun, Mexico for just $299. This opportunity is valued at more than $2,600. That's right, a $2,600 vacation for $299, and it's all-inclusive, meaning all your food and drinks are included. Attendance is required at a presentation for Vacation Club ownership, but who cares? There's no purchase necessary, and you have a 30-day money-back guarantee if you change your mind. Do not miss this exclusive luxury vacation offer from SweetDeals.com. $299 for 4 nights at an all-inclusive resort in beautiful Cancun, Mexico. Go to SweetDeals.com right now and snag this once-in-a-lifetime offer. That's SweetDeals.com.
Stacking Benjamins with Joe and his good friend OG not only has great financial insight, it's laid back with humor too.
Dollar cost averaging works because everything else doesn't. Let me put that a different way. But dollar cost averaging works every time. Just keep buying.
60% of the time, it works every time.
People spend a lot of time, OG, worrying about when to buy.
This is really simple. You should invest when you have the money, and you should withdraw the money when you need the money. Boom.
There it is.
I believe they call that a mic drop.
The Stacking Benjamin Show, available on YouTube or wherever you listen.
Good at promotion and hype, and I've been told many, many times that my industry is going to change and that my job is going to disappear. I've heard that for over 30 years. It still hasn't happened. I just would suggest that AI is it certainly will be an increasingly big part of our lives, or our lifestyle, I should say, and our work style. But I don't necessarily think it's going to take everything overnight, and I do think the government's going to have a lot to say, especially if it starts really taking big chunks out of the workforce. So yet to be seen. But again, on the AI stocks, I would be very careful about chasing them. Be very, very careful.
All right, and we'll be talking more about AI later this hour. At this point, Ken WINANS, where are you putting money now and or taking it off the table?
I'm kind of taking a hint from the Battle of Bunker Hill during the American Revolution, which is don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes. And what do I mean by that is I'm not really prepared to step into any stock until I see that earnings report. I want to see what's going on with these companies, both revenue growth and bottom line earnings growth. Because, again, I think that in a year like this is, and Frank, we haven't talked much about it, but this has been a very tricky year. And for any of us in money management, trickier than we realize, because you had, obviously, the tech stocks have had this massive bounce back, but then you had a massive chunk of the stock market, mainly the old line companies, that have done virtually nothing. So I think it's kind of like the old adage in medicine, do no harm. And meaning in my world, don't trade into a bad situation because you can already take a lagging situation and make it worse. I'm just really getting ready for the fall. Find out who the lead groups are, get through the rest of the summer, wait for the Federal Reserve to say we're done, and you want to go after and get your portfolio fully invested for that fall run that typically does happen. But as I said right now, I think that the number one thing I would just tell everybody, if you want to step in and buy some things, I would just simply say I think the financial stocks have cleared a lot of the hurdles that we had earlier in Q1. I still particularly like bank-preferred stocks that pay these very high dividend yields between 6 and 7%. You pick your bank. They have them all. I would just say with the bigger money center banks that are too big to fail. But I would just suggest when we talk next week, I'll have a much bigger list of companies that I would step into. But as I said, I'm waiting for the reports to come out.
Right, and we did get the bank earnings that came out last week. The big names, J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Citigroup posted quarterly results. The top analyst estimates and the regional bank turmoil seems to have faded after 3 bank failures earlier this year. Ken, what about, are you looking at any of those regional names, any bottom fishing there, and what do you see ahead for those names?
You know, it's funny we're talking about it because my next Forbes article is going to be about financials and should the average investor really tread into these waters because of what happened before. I personally find bank financials to be one of the tougher challenges to examine and to analyze because they're very complicated. I mean, when I look at a company that makes pool chemicals, I can look at top line, bottom line growth. I can see what's going on with their cash flow. That's fine. When I'm looking at a bank financial statement, it is a walk on the wild side with all the things that they're involved in and trying to figure out what's really happening. Here's the point. What I would say about the regionals, you have to back into and figure out what is their exposure to commercial real estate. We all know that's still problematic in our society. I would not own a regional bank that has heavy exposure to commercial properties. I think this is a multi-year problem that they're going to have a tough time absorbing, and I think they're going to eventually have to write down some properties. So again, if you have the ability to separate, regional banks that have that kind of exposure from just simple, very easy to follow type companies, that's fine. But again, be very careful.
All right, Ken, thank you very much for taking the call this evening to kick off the week with the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ basically at a 15-month high, the Dow at a new high point for the year. Looking forward to connecting again very soon. Ken, thank you very much for joining us live here this evening.
Take care, Frank. Good night.
Thank you very much. Ken Winans, money manager and president of Winans Investments, Forbes magazine contributor and author of Investment Atlas 1 and 2, creator of the Winans Preferred Stock Index and the Winans Real Estate Index. Live with us here tonight, Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Folks, it's jarring to have a car accident and hard to think clearly when you're hit. So my friend, attorney Clark Fielding of Fielding Law, created something to help you. It's a guide called Be Prepared Before a Motor Vehicle Accident. The guide is 1 page, fits in your glove compartment, gives you everything you need in case you're hurt in an accident. Go to clarkthesharklaw.com and download your free 1-page guide and keep it in your glove box and put Clark's number in your phone, too, under the word accident. All you have to do is hit the number when you need him. Tell your family and friends to do the same. So if you're injured in an accident, call the one we all trust, attorney Clark Fielding at 833-88-SHARK. That's 833-88-SHARK. 833-88-SHARK, and download the Be Prepared Before a Motor Vehicle Accident Guide at clarkthesharklaw.com. Again, that's clarkthesharklaw.com, clarkthesharklaw.com. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Good evening. Stocks moving higher today to kick off the new week. The Dow 76 points at 34,585. That's a new high for the year. The S&P 500 of 17 at 4,522. And the NASDAQ gained 131 at 14,245. Tech stocks continue on a roll with NVIDIA shares of nearly $10 at $464.61. We'll talk AI shortly with one of the leading experts on the subject. Coming up here, Jim Hoskins, an AI pioneer and the CEO of Cogability, will be joining us live. Taking a look at Apple shares moving up more than $3 today to $193.99. Looks like Apple kissing new highs today. Disney down $3 at $85.56. In the week producer category, Hollywood stocks coming under pressure today as the SAG-AFTRA and WGA strike continues. We see Paramount Global shares down 60 cents at $15.36 and Warner Brothers Discovery down 9 cents at $12.31. The price of gold moving up by about $3 at $1,959. Crude oil slipping 4 cents at $74.11. Sticker shock again at Southern California gas pumps with self-serve regular gas in Los Angeles, averaging just below $5 a gallon now. We see premium at $5.33 and average in diesel at $5.19 a gallon. Taking a look at some of the other names that are getting attention these days, of course, in the EV space, we see Tesla on quite a roll this year, moving higher today by 3%. After the company's first Cybertruck rolled off the assembly line, Rivian shares down by 3%. After that, Tesla news, and Ford ended lower today by nearly 6%. As I mentioned earlier, Ford says it's cutting prices on its F-150 Lightning electric pickup trucks by as much as 17% for some models. On the economy, we're watching things closely, of course, and we did hear today from the former Fed chair, now Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She said, I don't expect a recession. If she said she expected a recession, that would be, of course, earth-shattering news. She said, I do not expect a recession, even though a lot of people think we've had a recession or already in one, or, well, we'll see what happens once that group that declares recessions will finally come out with its assessment. Manufacturing, meanwhile, definitely under pressure here and elsewhere. The New York Empire State Business Conditions Index, that's a manufacturing index, moving lower this past month, and economists had expected a flat reading, so that's concerning. We had that other manufacturing reading recently showing manufacturing at the lowest level seen in 2 years when the economy was completely shut down. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. Good evening. We're doing it live here in the 5 o'clock hour on 790 KABC, streaming live online worldwide at KABC.com. And don't forget the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast at KABC.com, Apple, iTunes, all your podcast platforms. And we're on the socials, too, at Frank Mottek on Twitter, Instagram, and let's not forget good old LinkedIn, too. Well, homelessness and crime continues to be among the top issues facing businesses here in the Los Angeles area. Local businesses continue to wrestle with both crime and the homeless. Let's discuss what's happening now in Venice, which is getting national attention again due to what's happening. According to the New York Post headline, iconic Venice Beach Boardwalk continues to be occupied by homeless groups during spiraling crisis. And no question that crime is on the rise. Let's bring in the latest now, Soledad URSUA, Venice Neighborhood Council board member. And thank you very much, Soledad, for joining us live here tonight from beautiful Venice.
Hi, good evening.
Great to have you with us. Go ahead, lay it on thick, and tell us what's happening there.
So for those of you who live local in Los Angeles, you probably remembered it. We got international news. Last year, we had about 200 tents on the Venice Boardwalk. We were experiencing incredibly high crime. The city taxpayers then had to allocate $5 million to clean up the Venice Boardwalk and to put people into housing. The problem that we see time and time again for those of us who live there is that people go into housing and they end up right back out on the street. And so that's what we're seeing right now, where people are shocked to realize that the people just come straight back. If you're on social media, there have been some video clips that have gone viral of tourists who are waiting about an hour to use the bathrooms at Venice Beach because they are now occupied by homeless individuals. And there's also these videos going where there's about 10 different taxpayer-funded workers trying to get people to accept housing. And it's just incredible. The people don't want housing. They're there to do drugs. They have possibly serious mental illness. So it's just getting very overwhelming in Los Angeles.
Must be frustrating for you and other business people there. What kind of response are you getting from City Hall these days?
All they tell us is that they need more time and they need more money. I mean, look at Karen Bass. On day one, she declared a homeless emergency. Well, it's July. We're 7 months in. So this doesn't really feel like how you'd react during an emergency. She started her pilot program, Inside Safe. She, to date, this is as of July, she spent $40 million, and they have housed 1,400 individuals. Do the math. That's $29,000 per person. That doesn't seem like success. And that's the initiative that she's rolling out. It's the same initiative that they do time and time again, where they take people, they use vouchers, they put them up into hotels. But we see time and time again that people just end up right back out on the street. So there's no innovative solutions. We keep doubling down on failed policy. And it's us, the taxpayer, who is picking up this incredible bill.
In the meantime, tourists continue to flock to Venice, right? International tourism continues. How is it going these days? being such a big tourist area, and now wrestling with all of these issues there.
And, it's really hurting business. I will tell you that, nearby Santa Monica has been hit incredibly hard. What I understand is, it's the promenade. I mean, I used to go shopping there. It's beautiful, property right by the beach. It has a 35% vacancy rate today. That rivals sort of the doom loop that's going on in San Francisco. And just this weekend, Phil Brock, he's a Santa Monica council member. He's been one of the best voices for sane policies in Santa Monica. Someone who's, really been trying to advocate to stop all this madness. He was attacked by a homeless person. The homeless person was defacing property, and Phil asked him to stop that, and instead was attacked by him. So here we have a Santa Monica City Council member that was attacked by a vagrant.
Stacking Benjamins with Joe and his good friend OG not only has great financial insight, it's laid back with humor too.
Dollar cost averaging works because everything else doesn't. Let me put that a different way. But dollar cost averaging works every time. Just keep buying.
60% of the time, it works every time.
People spend a lot of time, OG, worrying about when to buy.
This is really simple. You should invest when you have the money, and you should withdraw the money when you need the money. Boom.
There it is.
I believe they call that a mic drop.
The Stacking Benjamin Show, available on YouTube or wherever you listen.
Former Navy SEAL Sean Ryan shares real stories from real people from all walks of life on The Sean Ryan Show.
Dr. Michael Bagnell.
In the brain, we have networks that work together. Think about like a toggle switch. Well, in the default mode network, where we have a sense of relaxing, taking things in, it's also where we have a hope generated for our future. Someone goes to military service, sees extremely traumatic things. They've just seen so much damage. They may end up shutting down this default mode network.
The Sean Ryan Show on YouTube or wherever you listen.
That same morning, a dead body was found right there too. So it's just overdosing. We everybody who lives here, we see it with our own eyes. We know that it's a drug addiction, and our elected officials, they refuse to admit this. I went to a recent meeting where LOS is there. That's the Los Angeles Homeless Services Agency. They continue to double down and say that this crisis is economic, that people can't afford housing, that rent is too high. So, people, they don't want to admit that their failed policies are really enabling this crisis, because not only do we allow drug addiction, we enable it. We're giving out drug paraphernalia for free. So it's a huge mess. And if I were a tourist, I would not want to bring my children to spend time in Venice or Santa Monica.
That is heartbreaking. We're on the air live with SOLEDAD URSUA, Venice Neighborhood Council board member, and that must be tough for you to say that, but that says a lot, what you just said there, SOLEDAD. And let me ask you this. For a while there, Venice had seen such a wonderful renaissance. For a while there, Venice was considered Marina del Rey adjacent, and then Marina del Rey became Venice adjacent, right, when the property values soared. And you've seen the best and the worst there at this point.
That's right. Things had really turned around in 2016. I think that things started to top off in, 2018. But remember, we had a socialista LA City Council member, Mike Bonin. So luckily we got him out of office. We've seen some big improvement. But still, it's just, the city might be perhaps lost. It's not sure if the city can really repeal all of this. We've seen that basically the entire nation, people have moved here. So we're getting a lot of, new drug addicts that have come straight from out of state.
That is awful. And you yourself, made national news when you were also accosted by a homeless person. Tell us about that.
So, in addition to the encampments, we have a huge problem with RVs and vans. Basically what LA City permits is that you can just drive up and park and live anywhere you want. So I had got into an altercation myself. A huge RV had pulled up right outside my neighbor's house. And, I thought, I'm just going to go talk to the person. I'm going to ask them if they can move. I explained to them that, there's a bunch of young children living there. And, I said that, they can't be in this area anyways. So we got into altercation. It went very badly. I would suggest never go try to get somebody to move their RV. And they threatened to kill me, and they chased me several blocks. I called the police. They eventually showed up, and they said there's nothing that they could do because, they looked at me and they said, you're fine. You weren't hurt. And so no police report is filed because I wasn't stabbed or beaten. So there's no police report filed. So again, when you hear our elected officials saying that crime is down, the only thing that's down is reported crime because there is no point in calling the police. Unless you are seriously injured, they're not going to show up.
That is awful. Which, are you talking about the city of Los Angeles or Santa Monica?
This is city of LAPD. They're just so overwhelmed with, violent crimes going on that you really cannot get anybody to respond.
That is very, very heartbreaking. And when businesses are broken into, what kind of a response time are you seeing there?
I mean, I don't know about businesses. I will tell you that this was last weekend. There were some vagrants. I live right by, the city put in a 154-person homeless shelter, literally right in my backyard in Venice Beach. And I woke up at 4 a.m. Some vagrants were launching fireworks into the alley. So that's not normal, right? They're supposed to go up into the street. But so they're launching them, and the fireworks are hitting houses, the street. So clearly that's a major fire hazard. These are very old, 100-year-old homes. The entire neighborhood could go up quickly. I called 911. I was put on hold. So that's how bad it is.
That is really heartbreaking. One story after another. Soledad, what is your message to City Hall tonight?
Well, not to City Hall. It's really to the people. We have to get louder. We have to start demanding more. We have been gaslit, and we can't accept this anymore. It's time to really get in people's faces and demand accountability. And if these elected officials cannot make good on their promises, then we need to kick them out of office immediately.
Soledad URSUA, Venice Neighborhood Council board member, speaking out about what's happening in the Venice neighborhood tonight. Soledad, thank you very much for taking the call. Look forward to speaking with you and getting your updates from time to time. Thank you very much for joining us live here tonight.
Thank you.
Don't give in to that constant joint pain. Take control. Take back your quality of life today with help from QC Kinetics. It's Frank Mottek here. QC Kinetics is helping people every day right here in Southern California and all across the country with their amazing non-surgical treatments that repair and restore damaged joint tissue. They use the latest advances in regenerative medicine, taking your own body's healing agents and concentrating them right in the area where you have that agonizing pain. This incredible non-invasive approach helps you take back control of your body, relieving the pain in your knees, hips, shoulders, or back. No invasive surgery, no harmful drugs or steroids, and no downtime. Summertime needs to be about having fun out there, making memories, golfing, hiking, enjoying the great outdoors. Take control now and start living pain-free again. Call QC Kinetics with locations in Glendale, the city of Orange, Mission Viejo, and now also in Costa Mesa. Call 213-997-PAIN. That's 213-997-PAIN. That's 213-997-PAIN. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. Good evening. The head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Gary Gensler, today warned that artificial intelligence now poses a risk to financial stability. He says regulators are on the lookout for fraud, conflicts of interest, and he cautions companies touting AI in corporate documents. Let's bring in Jim Hoskins now, an AI pioneer and the CEO of Cogability, whose company specializes in artificial employees. And we spoke to Jim recently. He also told us about his Cog University, which is the world's first university dedicated to teaching machines rather than humans. Jim Hoskins, thank you very much for taking the call here. It's been a while since we've chatted behind live microphones, and of course things are moving very quickly in the AI world. Give us your reaction, first of all, to what Gary Gensler had to say about AI. The head of the Securities and Exchange Commission says that AI poses a risk now to financial stability.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Frank. So, yes, well, AI is probably the most transformative technology of our time. And so like any powerful technology or really change of any kind, there's both opportunities and risks in every industry and every walk of life. So in the realm of financial markets, Chairman Gensler has been focused on AI and the impacts of it on our financial system's stability for some time now, and rightly so. So in the area of finances, there are benefits and there are risks, just like in every other industry and every other walk of life with AI. So some of the benefits are improved regulatory compliance. So companies struggle to make sure that they're purposefully and tirelessly complying with SEC regulations. That's not a trivial task. And by using artificial intelligence to analyze large amounts of data, companies can do a better job of complying with the regulations. And to the extent those regulations are well considered, that's a good thing for the financial system and make things more stable. Another area of benefit is for the SEC itself. They can use this technology for surveillance and analysis and enforcement to, again, make sure that financial institutions are following the rules. And again, that helps the financial foundation of our financial markets. Fraud detection is another one. So AI has a lot of benefits it can bring, but then there are some risks. For example, in the area of herd mentality, popular AI models of the future can be trained on financial data and current market conditions and make increasingly accurate predictions. I mean, modeling is nothing new to the world of financial markets, but the capabilities of AI to produce higher quality models with more accurate predictions, well, that makes it buy and sell signals go out to everybody at the same time, so everybody buys and everybody sells. So that's an example of a risk. One more is bias and discrimination. So more broadly in the financial sector, AI systems can perpetuate prejudice and discrimination because the models are built on data collected about human behavior, and that behavior is inherently biased. So the models are also biased. For example, Apple had a credit card algorithm. It's been accused of discriminating against women by triggering investigations. New York Department of Financial Services did some investigations. Amazon also had a career resume screener that filtered out female candidates. So bias is another big issue, right?
Very interesting, and thanks for laying it out on the line. And by the way, the SEC itself, we understand, uses AI to help in its market surveillance, to enforce its policies. And recently, other government agencies, of course, have started investigating AI companies. The FTC announced just last week, I believe, it opened an investigation into OpenAI. So certainly regulators have their work cut out for them these days. It was fascinating to speak with you last time, Jim, when you were telling us about your company. It specializes in artificial employees, with labor so much in focus here in Hollywood at the moment. Tell us about what you see ahead as far as digital employees, artificial employees.
Yeah, so at Cog University, as you mentioned, it's the first university in the world dedicated to teaching machines instead of humans. All of the creatures that were created at Cog University are AI creatures called Cogbots, Cogbots. So we train these Cogbots at Cog University just like at a regular university where they take courses during semesters and humans act as faculty members to teach them. So we teach these Cogbots to then go serve as digital employees for all kinds of different industries. And you can think of them as doing tasks, not really doing a whole job, but doing tasks. And by doing boring, repetitive, even dangerous tasks, it relieves human employees from having to do those mundane things so they can spend more time on higher value work and on less boring, more engaging, creative things. So at Cog University, what we're doing today, our example, is we're teaching Cogbots to do what's called robotic process automation, or RPA. It's a way for the digital employee to actually operate a computer system just like a human would with a keyboard and a mouse, so that a digital employee can take over mundane tasks like data entry and do it faster and more accurately and less expensively than a human, allowing the human to go do something more useful that's more that an AI can't do, which is plenty.
Well, so how does it work when a company approaches you and does a cost comparison? How does it work? They still have to train that bot, right? How does it cost out?
Yeah, so a lot of times our solutions, our digital employees, because we've already deployed them in various industries and to do certain tasks, they come pre-trained in many cases. But typically, you're going to have to, as the employer of a digital employee, do some additional training. So your subject matter experts who know this task very well will become faculty members at Cog University and teach the Cogbot what it needs to know. You can think of a digital employee as being able to cost about as much as a half of a full-time employee in terms of cost. And then they can work 24/7. They never get sick. Once you train them, they don't leave and go work for someone else. A lot of benefits, but we still need the humans. The humans can do way more things than an AI can do. So we need to use AI where AI makes sense, and we need to use humans everywhere else.
All right. How are the grades for these bots? What are the instructors telling you?
Well, it's an iterative process. So they start out just like a human. If you hire an employee, they come in the door with a set of knowledge, and then you have to teach them the task And then the more you teach them, the better they get. And that's the same with the digital employee. The more you use them, the more you teach them, the better they get, the better they get, the better they get, and they never leave, and they're always there for you. We can do that for any kind of business. So anyone interested in exploring digital employees should reach out to us.
What's your website there, Jim?
It's cogability.com, COG-ability.com.
All right. Very interesting. As always, Jim, look forward to speaking with you again for your updates on what's happening in the AI world. That is Jim Hoskins, an AI pioneer and the CEO of Cogability. Jim, thanks very much for taking the call live with us here tonight.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
All right. Take care and have a good evening. And this is Mottek On Money, live on 790 KABC. Also, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast for you at KABC.com. We'll be back again tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock for you right here. Mottek On Money, 790 KABC.